Welcome back, everybody. You've heard this old adage before. Those were the good old days. But what if we flip the script to appreciate what's happening here and now? That's the premise behind children's author Russell Daniels' newest book, These Are the Good Old Days. We're excited to talk about it with him. Russell, good morning.
Good morning.
I know that this is going to get a little bit on the heavy side before we get to the lighter stuff, but I think it's so important to talk about mental health. Talk to me about your inspiration for this book, because it comes from your own experiences, and why you wanted to write it.
Yes, thank you. So the story is inspired by my late brother, Danny, who lost his battle with mental health in August of 2020. And so this book is an expression of, yes, those were the good old days with Danny, but also these are the good old days, and they continue to be because of all the love and the family members that we still have in our life. But this book is an honor and a tribute to Danny's life, and sharing the perspective that these are the good old days. They were before, they will continue to be, because that's kind of the approach and the mentality behind it.
I think if you look the word nostalgia up in the dictionary, it actually indicates some form of melancholy, like some form of sadness for what was. So the fact that we're talking instead about like what is, and like let's appreciate that, I think is so huge. What can readers expect when they open this book? You know, what's it about?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of the subtitle of the book is A Story for Children and Families About Appreciating the Moment While You're Still in It. So not looking back to some time in the past that those were, but we are in them right now. And the repeated phrase through the book that I think kind of centers the story is, these are the good old days when we're all still around and you're right here safe and sound. I know that these are the good old days, is what Grandpa Dan, which is also based on my real life grandfather, who's 94 years old.
Wow, way to go, Grandpa.
Yep. And I was able to give him my book, These Are the Good Old Days, on his 94th birthday, which we have a picture in here somewhere that I can speak to.
Oh my goodness, that is so sweet.
Yep, so it's a really meaningful present that I was able to give him.
Wow, that is really wonderful. I do want to talk a little bit about the fact that it is a children's book, and why you chose it to be a children's book, and what you're hearing from your friends who have kids, because it's doing a little reminding for them as well.
Absolutely. So making it a children's book, which we have a picture here that I've done readings at various elementary schools here in Austin and a few in San Antonio, and just being able to share a message with someone who is first starting to make sense of the world, and that they can go home at the end of that day after hearing my reading, and they look around the dinner table and say, these are the good old days. I would love for that to happen. And so that's part of the reason for doing for a children's book, and having the illustrations come to life to support it.
It really gives me chills, and you've got some fantastic illustrations as well. Can you talk to me a little bit about Sandra McDougal?
Yes, yep. Sandra is a Austin-based illustrator who I met through kind of the art community on the east side in Austin, and reached out to her, and over the past 6 to 9 months we worked together to bring to life what we see here on the screen.
It's gorgeous.
That picture of Grandpa Dan, well, every picture is based on the actual people. And somewhere on the photo on the right, you'll see what looks like me and my parents, and Grandma Sally is the lady in the pink on the left right there. So everyone, based on real people. And then here we have a picture of Danny when he was younger, and then Grandpa Dan. And Grandpa Dan is a retired dentist. He worked at the Bexar County Jail for many, many years, leading their dental program. So these are just a few images of Danny's life, and the life that we got to share with him.
Do you know, I can see how fulfilling it is, how wonderful your family and close-knit it is, and I think that really reflects not only in the illustrations of the book, but some of the pictures
Thank you.
that you've brought to us today. Okay, this actually is your first book.
Yes, it is.
But we are hoping it is not your last.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about the second one you're working on.
Yep, so on the final page, and this is the picture of when I gave the book to Grandpa Dan.
Look at how proud he is.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me want to cry.
Yeah, it was a beautiful day. So the
the second book that you're
That's right, yes. So on the final page of this book, the closing page says, I'm glad you're here. And so that's kind of a teaser for the title of my second book, which will be out probably sometime next year. And just a message of like telling someone a simple phrase of "I'm glad you're here" can be deeply meaningful to feel that, if you really get that feeling of, I'm glad you're here, that you've gone through everything you've gone through, and that we're here together.
And not only that, but for people who are struggling with mental health, maybe to just hear that you're being recognized, that your presence is honored. I think it's really important. Such important information today, and a really adorable book. Thank you so much, Russell, for your time. And congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys, get Russell's book online now. alwaysthegoodoldays.com.
Dedicated to my family and everyone else who I love. I care for you all dearly. Here we have the map, as any good adventure needs a map. We have the patio table in the swimming pool, creek in the spring, Grandpa Dan's house, the rock collection, fishing at the coast, the woods, secret fort, adventures in South America. A story for children and families about appreciating the moment while you're still in it. Every Sunday, Danny and Grandpa Dan went for a walk in the woods around Grandpa Dan's house. This is Danny's first and most favorite memory. Danny remembers when Grandpa Dan said for the first time something that would stick with Danny for all his life. These are the good old days, when we're all still around and you're right here safe and sound. I know that these are the good old days. Danny looked up at Grandpa Dan and asked if they could go on an adventure. Every time Danny and Grandpa Dan went for a walk in the woods, or built a fort, or played in the creek, or looked for neat rocks, all their activities together were an adventure for Danny. Danny and Grandpa Dan had many adventures together, because, after all, these are the good old days. Danny and Grandpa Dan also took adventures to the coast. One night, they were fishing from the wooden pier and eating warm soup because it was so cold outside. Grandpa Dan turned to Danny and said, "These are the good old days, when we're all still around and you're right here safe and sound. I know that these are the good old days." One year, Danny spent all summer at Grandpa Dan's house, and it started raining, as it often would. But this time, it didn't stop raining for 3 whole days. Soon, the underground springs at Grandpa Dan's house were bubbling up with water. Water coming out of the ground. Danny had never seen such a thing. What an adventure. Danny played in the creek with the fresh rainwater as Grandpa Dan kept watch over him. They both knew, at that moment, these are the good old days. Long days turned to quick years. Eventually, Danny finished high school. He even went to college and finished college too. For his whole life, Danny did what he was supposed to do. But then, after college, he didn't know what he wanted to do, and he started to feel lost.
Finally, Danny knew what he wanted to do, and all he wanted to do was travel and go see the world. Another adventure is what Danny knew he needed to do. So, Danny went to South America and had many adventures all by himself. Sometimes Danny felt lonely being very far away from his family. So, Danny comforted himself with the words from Grandpa Dan. Danny told himself, "These are the good old days, when we're all still around, and I'm right here safe and sound. I know that these are the good old days." After being in South America for a whole year, Danny decided he wanted to come home. Danny's family met him at the airport to welcome him back, including Grandpa Dan. Danny was so happy to see his family, but he noticed Grandpa Dan seemed much older now and moved more slowly. Still, Danny knew that being back with his family, these are definitely the good old days. It was Sunday again, so Danny spent the whole day at Grandpa Dan's house. As it got dark, Danny could hear the crickets chirping, see the fireflies in the trees, and hear his family laughing and talking. Danny knew, being home for the first time in a year, that these are the good old days. Grandpa Dan was so happy to have Danny home. He sat next to Danny and said, "These are the good old days, when we're all still around, and you're right here safe and sound. I know that these are the good old days." Over the years, Grandpa Dan grew older and slower. One day, Grandpa Dan went to the doctor. The doctor told him he was too old to go on adventures. Danny was so sad Grandpa Dan couldn't go on adventures anymore. He thought the good old days were over. But Danny still had his parents, brothers, and Grandma Sally to go on adventures with him. And Danny knew the best thing he can do is continue believing these are still the good old days. Danny got older and became a grown-up with a job and a house and a car and even a child of his own. Danny would soon take them on their own adventures and share everything Grandpa Dan taught him, including the most important lesson of all. Danny went for a walk in the woods for the first time with his own child, holding hands with all the care and excitement for their own adventures ahead. Danny said, "These are the good old days, when we're all still around, and you're right here safe and sound. I know that it's always the good old days."
Appreciate today, knowing that each day is always the good old days. That's the message Texas author Russell Daniel wants you to take away from his new book. It's called These Are the Good Old Days, and Russell's here to tell us a little bit more. It's nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
So let's talk about you first, because you are a San Antonio guy, born and raised, went to high school right here in San Antonio.
That's right, yep.
Nice.
I grew up in Leon Valley, just kind of right down the road from here, and still have my parents here and grandparents still here in town.
Very nice. All right, let's talk a little bit about the book. It's called These Are the Good Old Days. What was the inspiration behind the book?
Yes, so the kind of the origin of it comes from the loss of my late brother in August of 2020. And I've always had the idea, even before his passing, that too often we just look back and say those were the good old days. And we often don't look around and realize, you know what, this is a really nice time as well. And so his loss brought forward the book, but I think it's a universal message that can speak to anyone throughout any stage of life, children, and including parents and families.
Absolutely. It is such a great message. I think about that all the time. We are living in the good old days, right? It's every day is a new memory that you can create that people will remember after you are long gone. Let's talk about some rewards maybe that came from writing this book.
Yeah, one of my favorite is when I've given it to a friend or a family member and they have a little kid, and they'll read it like at the dinner table or at night, one night before. And then I've had friends tell me that they heard their little kid upstairs saying, these are the good old days, just on their own, completely, on their own, just enjoying their own moment. So I love the idea that something that I get to write and share with people makes a real impact in as someone is growing up. Have that mentality going throughout life.
That's fantastic. You're also traveling around and sharing
Yes.
the book with school kids. Tell me about that.
Yep, so I've done readings in San Antonio as well as Austin, and doing more school readings now that school is starting up again in the fall. So I've done readings at a handful of elementary schools, some bookstores, and then planning to do libraries, and then also be at the Texas Book Festival, which is in November of this year.
Okay. Who is this book for? Because yes, it might be a children's book, but I feel like the message is kind of universal for everybody.
Absolutely, yep. And so myself, I actually don't even have any children, but I like the format and especially the idea that someone can grow up with this concept that maybe we kind of have in the back of our minds just independent of the book. But if I could help distill that into a concept and a story, then it's for kids, but if parents are the ones who are ultimately finding it and choosing it to buy it and bring it into their family, definitely want it to be relevant for parents and families.
There's such a disconnect in this day and age. People spend so much time on the phone and things like that. So I think it's very important to realize the importance of family and celebrating each moment, every second that you have.
Yeah, and especially the idea that, oh, those were the good old days, or it will be the good old days once I accomplish X, Y, or Z. But if we can look around, whether it's something simple like sitting together at the dinner table or being together at the park, and just look around and be like, you know what? This is what we mean of the good old days. We're in them right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do we get the book?
Available on my website, which is alwaysthegoodoldays.com, Amazon, of course. And then local bookstores can order it for you, even if it's not on the shelf.
Nice.
You can ask them to order it, and they'll order it for you.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in this morning and sharing
Yes.
the book with us. I'm going to give the viewers all the details. If you'd like to find out a little bit more, take a look at your screen. These Are the Good Old Days by Russell Daniel. You can always go online to get more information at alwaysthegoodoldays.com and follow along on social media as well at Always the Good Old Days.